Good evening. Today we are going to go into our third session of conservation of biodiversity, and today we are going to specifically take biosphere reserves. As you can see on the map, there are 18 biosphere reserves for India, starting with the biggest, which is the Rann of Kutch here in Gujarat. This is the biggest one for India, and then of course there is one in Assam, which is the Dibru Psychokhao, which is the smallest one. I can expand it for you if you can't see it. I think that should be clear, but we will talk about it as we go through. आज बहुत सारे words use होने वाले हैं जो कि थोड़े tough होंगे language में. So I would request you to keep writing as I say, because the name of the biosphere reserves is a little tricky, especially when it comes to the international sphere. So first and foremost, what is a biosphere? A biosphere is a place on earth which supports life. So wherever there are living organisms, that area on the earth is called a biosphere. Now we come to the second part. What is a biosphere reserve? A biosphere reserve is an area of protected biodiversity where not only the flora and the fauna, but also the human settlement in and around the area which is dependent on nature is protected. Which means that biosphere reserves are one, protected areas of flora and fauna, and also human settlements in and around these protected areas which are dependent on nature are part of the biosphere reserve. So as we progress from national parks to wildlife sanctuaries to biosphere reserve, there is an element which gets added to biodiversity, and that is man. Man in his interaction with the environment becomes the smallest organism or the smallest class to be deciding what will happen in a biosphere reserve. So far आपने देखा कि जब हमने नेशनल पार्क की बात करी तो वहाँ पे हमने फ्लोरा, फौना, हिस्टोरिकल साइट्स और आपके इकोसिस्टम उसके प्रोटेक्शन की बात करी. देन वी स्पोक अबाउट वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरीज जहाँ पे हमने सिर्फ फौना की बात करी. नाउ वी आर सेइंग फ्लोरा, फौना, इकोसिस्टम and man's interaction with that ecosystem. And when we study this area in terms of sustainable development or man in his interaction with the social, cultural and ecosystem, leading to an interdisciplinary approach of understanding man's environment in totality, we are talking of a biosphere reserve. मैं फिर से आपको धीमे धीमे बोलती हूँ, हम वो एरिया जिसको कि सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के लिए पढ़ते हैं या वो एरियाज जहाँ पे हम एक इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी अप्रोच अपनाते हैं ताकि हम ह्यूमन बींग्स की सोशल कल्चरल वैल्यूज को समझें और उनके इंटरैक्शन एनवायरनमेंट के साथ समझें, इंक्लूडिंग कॉन्फ्लिक्ट मैनेजमेंट, तो हम बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं. बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व को स्टडी करने की क्या ज़रूरत है? इसको स्टडी करने के लिए इसलिए ज़रूरी है क्योंकि कहते हैं कि यहाँ के जो लोकल सॉल्यूशंस हैं वो ग्लोबल प्रॉब्लम्स को सॉल्व करते हैं. टू मेक यू अंडरस्टैंड एंड टू गिव यू अ बैकग्राउंड फ्रॉम वेयर दिस कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व केम, देयर वाज अ होल लॉट ऑफ स्टडीज इन द 1960s, and I'm talking of 1968 when there was a first UNESCO conference. अब UNESCO क्या है? United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Cooperation Organization जो है उसको UNESCO कहते हैं. ये यूनाइटेड नेशंस का वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट पार्ट है और ये 1945 में ही इस्टेब्लिश हो गया था. इसके हेडक्वार्टर्स पेरिस में है. सो रिपीटेडली यू विल सी दैट बायोस्फीयर मैन एंड बायोस्फीयर प्रोग्राम्स जितने भी होते हैं ज़्यादा करके उनकी मीटिंग्स पेरिस में होती हैं. We'll go a bit into those details. But coming back to the concept of indigenous people, in the beginning when we decided, we meaning when the world community decided to protect areas, the focus of attention was the flora, for plants. then it became fauna because plants का extinction दिखने लगा, food की कमी दिखने लगी, food की वजह से green revolution हुआ not only in our country but world all over. और फिर जब उसमें sufficiency आई तब हम green revolution की तरफ से we started focusing on our fauna, which is our animal brotherhood part, which is also part of the ecosystem. फिर हमने उनके extinction को control करने की कोशिश की, and then from there we focused attention on indigenous people. These indigenous people can be the red Indians in parts of Latin America or South America, the tribals not only in India but in large parts of South Africa and African continent as a whole. If we look at the Biosphere Reserve all over the world, at present, an area of 6,812,000 square kilometers, which is almost the size of Australia, sustaining some 157 million people all over the world, are a part of the Biosphere Reserve. As we go into July 2021, on record from the UNESCO site, Biosphere reserves are 714. These 714 are spread